Okay, this is the rest of chapter 4 of the book Leadership 101. In fact, maybe I should put this a little closer. Sorry, I'm not trying to get it in my nose hairs, but if I don't put it close, it's really dark. So, thank you for bearing with me of having a very up close and personal picture of me. But isn't it nice you actually get to see me with makeup on for a change? Okay. So where we left off was, like I said, chapter 4 of Leadership 101 by John Maxwell. And I had said, however, three answers constantly reemerge and dominate the results of the study. Those answers were, if I had to do it over again, I would reflect more. And so this is where 50 people over the age of 95 were asked one question. If you could live your life over again, what would you do differently? Okay. So if I had to do it over again, I would reflect more. Okay. That was one. Number two, if I had to do it over again, I would risk more. Number three, if I had to do it over again, I would do more things that would live on after I am dead. Very, very smart. A young violinist was asked the secret of her success. She replied, planned neglect. Then she explained, when I was in school, there were many things that demanded my time. When I went to my room after breakfast, I made my bed, straightened the room, dusted the floor, and did whatever else came to my attention. Then I hurried to my violin practice. I found I wasn't progressing as I thought I should. So I reversed things. Until my practice period was completed, I deliberately neglected everything else. That program of planned neglect, I believe, accounts for my success. So isn't that crazy? Like to neglect certain things that we think, hey, we're being orderly and that important. The good is the enemy of the best. Most people can prioritize when faced with right or wrong issues. The challenge arises when we are faced with two good choices. Now, what should we do? What if both choices fall comfortably into the requirements, return, and reward of our work? How to break the tie between two good options. Ask your overseer or coworker their preference. Can one of the options be handled by someone else? If so, pass it on and work on the one only you can do. Which option would be of more benefit to the customer? Too many times we are like the merchant who was so intent on trying to keep the store clean. Oh my gosh, this is so true. Uh, that he would never unlock the front door. The real reason for running the store is to have customers come in, not to clean it up. Oh my gosh. Make your decision based on the purpose of the organization. Too many priorities paralyze us. Every one of us looked at our desk filled with memos and papers, heard the phone ringing, and watched the door open all at the same time. Remember the frozen feeling that came over you? William H. Henson tells us why animal trainers carry a stool when they go into a cage of lions. They have their whips, of course, and their pistols are at their sides, but invariably they also carry a stool. Henson says it's the most important tool of the trainer. He holds a stool by the back and thrusts the legs towards the face of the wild animal. Those who know maintain the animal tries to focus on all four legs at once. In an attempt to focus on all four, a kind of paralysis overwhelms the animal and it becomes tame, weak, and disabled because its attention is fragmented. Now, we all have more empathy for the lions. If you are overloaded with work, list the priorities on a separate sheet of paper before you take it to the boss and see what he will choose as the priorities. The last of each month, I plan and lay out my priorities for the next month. I sit down with my assistant and have her place those projects on the calendar. She handles hundreds of things for me on a monthly basis. However, when something is of high importance, high urgency, I communicate that to her so it'll be placed above other things. All true leaders have learned to say no to the good in order to say yes to the best. When little priorities demand too much of us, big problems arise. Robert J. McCain said, the reason most major goals are not achieved is that we spend our time doing second things first. Efficiency is the foundation for survival. Effectiveness is the foundation for success. Often the little things in life trip us up. A tragic example is an Eastern Airlines jumbo jet that crashed into the Everglades of Florida. Oh my gosh, I'm old enough to remember that. The plane was now famous flight, excuse me, 401, bound from New York to Miami with a heavy load of holiday passengers. As the plane approached the Miami airport for its landing, the light that indicates proper deployment of the landing gear failed to light. The plane flew into a large looping circle over the swamps of the Everglades, while the cockpit crew checked to see if the gear actually had not deployed or if instead the bulb in the signal light was defective. When the flight engineer tried to remove the light bulb, it wouldn't budge, and the other members of the crew tried to help him. As they struggled with the bulb, no one noticed the airplane was losing altitude, and the plane simply flew right into the swamp. Oh my gosh. Dozens of people were killed in the crash, while an experienced crew of high priced pilots fiddled with 75-cent light bulb. The plane with its passengers flew right into the ground. Oh my gosh. Time deadlines and emergencies force us to prioritize. We find this in Parkinson's law. If you have only one letter to write, it will take all day to do it. If you have 20 letters to write, you'll get them done in one day. When is our most efficient time in our work? The week before vacation? Why can't we always run our lives the way we do the week before we leave the office? Make decisions, cleaning off the desk, returning calls. Under normal conditions, we are efficient doing things right. When time pressure mounts or emergencies rise, we become effective doing the right things. Efficiency is the foundation for survival. Effectiveness is the foundation of success. On the night of April 14th, 1912, the great ocean liner, the Titanic, crashed into an iceberg in the Atlantic and sank, causing great loss of life. One of the most curious stories to come from the disaster was a woman who had had a place in one of the lifeboats. She asked if she could return to her stateroom for something and was given just 3 minutes. In her stateroom, she ignored her own jewelry and instead grabbed 3 oranges. Then she quickly returned to her place in the boat. Just hours earlier, it would have been ludicrous to think she would have it's wanting to, whoops, accepted a crate of oranges in exchange. Oh, just hours earlier, so this is super important. It would have been ludicrous to think she would have accepted a crate of oranges in exchange for even one small diamond. But circumstances had suddenly transformed all the values aboard the ship. The emergency had clarified her priorities. Too often, we learn too late what is really important. Gary Redding, sorry, y'all, tells a story about Senator Paul, whatever his name is, of Massachusetts. In January 1984, he announced that he would retire from the U.S. Senate and not seek re-election. Songus, I think is his name, was a rising political star. He was a strong favorite to be reelected and had even mentioned as a potential future candidate for the president or vice presidency of the United States. A few weeks before his announcement, Songus had learned he had a form of lymphatic cancer which could not be cured but could be treated. In all likelihood, it would not greatly affect his physical abilities or life expectancy. The illness did not force Songus out of the Senate, but it did force him to face the reality of his own mortality. He would not be able to do everything he might want to do. So, what were the things he really wanted to do in the time he had? He decided that he wanted to most in life, that what he wanted most in life, what he would not give up if he could have everything, was being with his family and watching his children grow up. He would rather do that than shape the nation's law or get his name in history books. Shortly after his decision was announced, a friend wrote a note to congratulate Songus on having his priorities straight. The note read, "Nobody on his deathbed ever said, 'I wish I'd spent more time on my business.'" So I leave that with you guys. That was such a perfect place to end, isn't it? Just the fact that John Maxwell is a believer, knows that a priority of work is definitely knowing how to spend time with your family. Um, just as, the Lord created relationships and they're the things that last. So, okie dokie. So, oh, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. Again, I do want to hear the nuggets, and I will brag because Miss Daphne has sent me her nuggets, and I am waiting for each of you to send me your nuggets. It could be the nuggets of, sorry, I'm trying to find some good lighting here. Ooh, that's a good one. So it could be the nuggets of the first chapter 1 and 2. It can be the nuggets of chapter 3 and 4, the first video I did, or it can be this last. So any of the three will be totally fun. And again, when you feel like it's difficult to listen to the whole thing at one time, just as you're folding laundry, doing dishes, riding down the road, sitting, laying in your bed, I do encourage you each to listen only because it really, I don't know, it just puts life into perspective. Like this definitely, I mean, we all need to have better knowledge of, our strengths and weaknesses and learning how to prioritize. So it'll be help you be effective as a parent, as a wife, as a worker, an employee, and just in general, be a leader. So, okay, love you guys. Let me know how I can help you and encourage you. Okay, bye.